absolute value in terms of distance. If you recall this equation, distance on a number line is equal to the absolute value of the difference of coordinates. And it didn't matter which order you put those. Okay, so here's the pattern that you can look at for this. If you were given an absolute value of like what we did in that first example, 3 minus root 10, anytime you have something in this form, absolute value of a minus b, the difference of two values, it doesn't matter which order you put these. So you can think of this as absolute value of 3 minus root 10, or you can think of it absolute value of root 10 minus 3. These are equivalent. There's no difference to these. So if you mentally think of them in either of those forms, and then you just compare which of these forms, here or here, is going to be a non-negative value. This one, right? Because root 10 is greater. If you put the greater number first, and then just pull that out of your absolute values, that's going to be your solution. Okay. When you're using distance, or I'm sorry, when you're using the absolute value of multiple terms. Okay, so what if I did something like this? If I said, what is the absolute value of pi minus 3 equal to without using absolute value expression? It equals, is it pi minus 3 or 3 minus pi? It's pi minus 3, right? Because is pi greater than 3? Yeah, as long as the larger number is first, you can just pull it right out of the absolute values. Okay, what if I did 2 minus pi? Now, when you think of this, because we're dealing with the difference of two terms, 2 minus pi is going to be equivalent to pi minus 2. Is 2 minus pi going to be a positive number? No, so you just switch the terms. Pi minus 2, is that going to be a positive number? Yeah, so that is your evaluated form. Okay, now let's verify this on our calculators, and so in doing so, show how to use absolute value on your calculator. Okay, we talked about the with key being this vertical bar. The temptation is going to be to type in, let's say, absolute value of pi minus 3, absolute value, and hit enter. What you're going to notice is that it'll show an error. That with key is not used for absolute values. Okay? In order to evaluate absolute values, you're going to need to use the code ABS parentheses. Okay? And there's two ways to access this. Easiest way is probably just to type it, physically type it. If you hit this white button, this alpha key, if you hit it once, this little A shows up in your display. If you hit it a second time, that A gets highlighted with a black mark or black box. That means it's locked into alphabet mode. So if you just alpha lock your keys and then just type ABS, so the key that corresponds with your A, your B, and your S, you can hit the alpha key one more time to deselect it, and then just put your parentheses and enter the expression. So in this case, pi minus 3. If I want to evaluate that, I hit enter. What I see is it verifies my answer was correct. Okay, the other location, the actual location of ABS is under the math menu key. The math menu key is the second and the number 5. So if you hit second 5, and then you just choose under number, go down to the second choice, ABS is located there. So if you don't want to type it in, you can find it in this math key. So if I want to verify absolute value of 2 minus pi, see what that's equal to, hit enter, I get my answer, pi minus 2. It verifies that we did that one correctly as well. Now, even though your calculator doesn't use this vertical bar to represent absolute values, anytime you enter answers online, you can use the vertical bar to represent absolute value. Do you guys see where the vertical bar is located on your keyboards? It's hard to tell because the vertical bar on your keyboard looks like this. It looks like it's like a dash line on top of itself. It's right above the Enter key, so it's the Shift, that backslash. And if you hit Shift, the backslash, it'll put a vertical bar in your entry or display. And so anytime you need to answer absolute value of, just put that vertical bar, and it'll be accepted. All right, the last type of problem that you're going to see on this are problems that have to do with that distance. And it'll ask you to convert from a distance expression or a distance statement into an absolute value inequality expression or a statement as well. So if you're given something like the following. Express in absolute value inequality, and they give you the following: the distance between x and 5 is at most 6. Okay, so any problems that you're dealing with this, you are going to refer back to that distance relationship, that the distance is equivalent to the absolute value of the difference of their coordinates. And there's just a slight change to this. What we're going to do is we're going to move the distance over to the other side. The reason for that is it just allows the inequality symbols to align with how we speak them. Okay? And now you just need to figure out, of the 3 pieces of information, you're going to be given 3 pieces in any of those problems. One of those pieces is the distance, and then the other 2 are your coordinates. So if you can identify the distance and isolate that on one side, put the other 2, the difference of the other 2 inside absolute values, and then just figure out what inequality symbol relates them, you're done. So out of x, 5, and 6, which of those is the distance? 6, right? So we can plug in a 6 for the d. That means that the x and the 5 go inside the absolute values. You just take the difference of them. It could be either absolute value of x minus 5 or absolute value of 5 minus x. Once again, I'll normally put the variable first. If the variable happens to be a negative number, it's possible that that would come second, but usually it'll come first. And so now if we look, the distance between these is at most 6. So can this distance be greater than 6? If it's at most 6? No. Can it be less than 6? Yeah. Can it be equal to 6? Yeah. And so that allows you to test the inequalities, and that would be your inequality notation. Okay, so when you're entering this online, absolute value of x minus 5, use those vertical bar key above the enter, less than equal to 6.